Ờ, financial things, so whatever it is. Okay, na? Then what type of model we need to develop, or what type of model required by the user. Okay, na? So that is the second one. And comes to third one is how to develop. So the meaning of how to develop, in the sense there, we consult an architect. So that architect will show us different types of designs. So among the multiple number of designs, so we select one design. Okay, na? So depends on that particular design only. Okay, na? Builder ready to construct our house. Am I correct or not? Am I correct or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So that kind of information what we call design phase. సో అక్కడ ఏంటంటే మనకి బిల్డింగ్ కన్స్ట్రక్ట్ చేసేటప్పుడు డిజైన్స్ అక్కడ మనం డిఫరెంట్ టైప్స్ ఆఫ్ డిజైన్ చూస్తాం. సో ప్రొవైడెడ్ బై ది ఆర్కిటెక్ట్. సో ఇక్కడ కూడా ఏంటంటే ఆర్కిటెక్ట్ ఈజ్ నథింగ్ బట్ సాఫ్ట్వేర్ ఇంజనీర్. ఓకేనా? ఇక్కడ సాఫ్ట్వేర్ ఇంజనీర్ ఏం చేస్తారంటే, సాఫ్ట్వేర్ ఇంజనీర్ వాట్ వి కాల్ విల్ వెరిఫై ఆల్ ద డయాగ్రామ్స్ రిలేటెడ్ టు యువర్ ప్రాజెక్ట్. సో దెన్ select the suitable diagrams to develop your project. So the depends on that structure that person is going to develop your project. So that kind of information we find out in the design phase. Okay, na? So next, development phase. So in development phase, we can able to find out the information how to implement. So there, how we implement that particular one, in the sense depends on which design we are going to develop or we are going to implement. But here, development phase, in the sense how to implement, in the sense like what type of front end we use. So like source code information. Okay, na? So that kind of information what we call development phase. Next one is implementation phase, and next one is follow up phase, in the sense maintenance phase. Implementation phase internally includes the testing information also. So what type of information we observed in the software development life cycle. Okay, and last one is follow up phase. Okay, so the meaning of follow up phase, in the sense maintenance. They just we verify the expected result. Okay, now after executing that information, or after executing your project, whatever the expected result desired by the particular user, when we reach or when we met that kind of requirements, we automatically succeed to develop that particular project, whatever it is. So that kind of information we find out in the project development. Okay, na? So these are the 6 different types of phases. Okay, now we are going to discuss about directly third one, design phase. So already in initiation phase, last class we briefly discussed about what are the things available in the initiation phase. So before going to develop any project, in initiation phase we need to prepare some questionnaire like this one. So why this project, is it feasible, and who are possible partners. So who are possible partners, in the sense who are the end users. Okay, now next one is what should the result be. So what type of result we expect. And next one is what is the scope of your project. The meaning of scope of your project, in the sense, is there any chances to develop future enhancement for your project. Okay, so in future also we need to use that particular project, and that project should be useful to the multiple number of users in future also. So that kind of scope we need to prepare, that kind of scope we need to design. Okay, na? So these are the things we find out in the initiation phase. Without preparing these questionnaire, we may not able to develop a project successfully. We may not what we call provide some executable result. Okay, na? Without preparing these questionnaires. Okay, na? So that's why in initiation phase we are preparing all these questions. Okay, na? So that is the first one. And the second one is definition phase. So in definition phase, there we observe the what type of information. So there we have different types of requirements are there. Okay, na? So in that also different types of requirements are there, in the sense there we have mainly 4 different types of things need to execute in the definition phase. First one is preconditions, second one is functional requirements, and the third one is operational requirements, and fourth one is design limitations. Already we know very well about preconditions. In the last class we discussed about preconditions. That is, it is completely depends on the working condition of your project. So what is the working condition of your project, and what are the different types of requirements approved by the user. So that kind of information we have in the preconditions. And second one is functional requirements. Okay, na? So some functional requirements will shows the quality of your project. Okay, na? So that is what we call, it shows how energy efficient whatever the information what we call developed by the user, whatever it is. So that kind of information we find out in the functional requirements. So okay na, so that is the second one. And comes to third one is uh, it will provide the suitable result, in the sense it includes the expected output. So what are the different types of operations we require to develop that particular project? Okay, now when we have all the operational requirements to develop that project in our hand, we can successfully execute that project, and we can expect the expected result, and we meet the whatever the result we if we want to execute. So that kind of information we observe. Okay, so that is the thing we observed in the operational requirements. And next, last one is design limitations. Okay, so that includes the actual realization of the project, that is actual what we call uh, sketch or skeleton of that particular project. Okay, so this is the information we find out in the definition phase. Okay, so that is the information regarding last class. Okay, initiation phase and definition phase. And it comes to third one is the design phase. And it is very very important uh, to develop any type of project, especially in software engineering. Okay, now, so whenever any software engineer wants to develop any type of project, so that particular software engineer first of all need to select a particular pictorial representation of that project. Okay, now instead of instead of showing the information, that is vast information to the client, or vast information to the end user. Okay, so the software engineer will shows the what we call different types of patterns to the that particular end user and that particular client. So depends on that one, depends on their requirements, he will develop that kind of information. So here we can able to find out the informations regarding design phase. Design phase can include what we call diagrams. So అక్కడ spelling mistake పడింది. Diagrams, next one is sketches, next flow charts, next site trees, HTML screen designs and prototypes, and photo impressions, and UML schemes. I already told you regarding unified modeling language schemes. So in design phase, so whenever if you want to develop any type of software project, okay, now there we need to that includes different types of things like diagrams, sketches, flowcharts, next site trees, next HTML screens, next one UML diagrams. Okay, now so this type of informations we observed in the design phase. Okay, so this is the scenario we observed in the design phase. So in the first one is the whatever the literature survey we have in our hand, or whatever the requirements we have in our hand to develop any project. So this will shows the information regarding that one. Next, after collecting the information to develop that project, we require some front end. So front end in the sense like programming languages. So what type of domain we select to develop that particular project. Okay, so that kind of information we find out in the front end. And next one, there we can able to select different types of options, and different types of backends are there. Okay, so backends are nothing but to execute the front end data. So there we use the backend data to store our information, that like data that is in the form of database. Okay, so that kind of information we find out in the design phase. So this is the overall sketch of the design phase. I repeat once again. So in design phase, in first phase we have some information. So like whatever the literature survey in our hand, or whatever the requirements, or whatever the resources in our hand to develop a project. That is, I already told you that in the initiation phase, whenever if you want to develop any project, first of all we have idea regarding that project. The meaning of idea in the sense, so we have some collected information, or we have some awareness regarding how to develop that particular project. Okay, so that kind of information we find out in the first one. Then there we need to select, or then we need to depends on some particular front end data. So there we need to select some front end data that is suitable front end data. So whatever the resources we have in our hand. Okay, na? So depends on the resources. So there we select the front end data. Then to support the front end data, that is to provide the data in the form of databases or in the form of what we call executable results. There we require backend data. So some projects we no need to require backends, but most of the cases 90% of the projects we use the backends in software project management. So backend will internally specifies the database storage, database retrieve, so whatever it is. So that kind of information we find out in the backend. Okay, na? So this is the scenario we find out in the design phase. I already told you that in design phase we find out the information. Okay, na? What we call in the form of diagrams. Okay, na? So this kind of information we find out in the design phase. Okay, na? So that is the step number 3. And comes to step number 4. So step number 4 is development phase. Okay, na? So during so here we can able to find out different types of things in the development phase. Comes to point number 1. So point number 1 is during the development phase, everything that will be needed to implement the project is arranged. So in development phase, the whenever if you want execute any type of project, or if you want to develop any type of project, okay, na, there we need to arrange all the things regarding that particular project. Okay, na? So regarding that particular project, in the sense I already told you that when we have some information in our hand in design phase, okay, na, there we need to select some front end. So front end and select చేసుకోవాలి, them there we need to select some back end. Ante before development phase, okay, na, we have required resources in our hand. And the second one is we have some front end information, and the third one is we have back end information. We need to collectively collect all these information. Okay, na, in development phase we project that information. That is whatever the information in our hand, we project that information at a time. So that is what we call a development phase. Okay, na? So the next two comes to point number 1. The development phase is complete when implementation is ready to start. So when will development phase is complete? Okay, na? So the development phase is complete when implementation is ready to start. The meaning of implementation is ready to start in the sense we successfully ready to execute our project. That is in phase number 1 we collect the information, and in phase number 2 there we can able to find out different types of functional requirements, operational requirements, whatever it is. And in phase number 3, so there we convert that information into some diagrammatic form. Okay, na? In phase number 4, okay, that kind of information is ready to execute. How can we say that that information is ready to execute? We can say that we have some required resources in our hand, and also we have what we call front end data and back end data. So all the three different types of requirements are there in our hand, so that we can say it is ready to start, that is it is ready to execute. సో ఇప్పుడు మనకి ఒక ప్రాజెక్ట్ మనం చేయాలనుకోండి. సో ప్రాజెక్ట్ చేయాలనుకున్నప్పుడు మనకి ఏంటంటే ఆ ప్రాజెక్ట్ ని డెవలప్ చేయడానికి రిసోర్సెస్. నెక్స్ట్ వన్ ఈస్ ఆ ప్రాజెక్ట్ ని డెవలప్ చేయడానికి మనకి ఏదైతే ప్రోగ్రామింగ్ లాంగ్వేజ్ యూజ్ అవుతుందో ప్రోగ్రామింగ్ లాంగ్వేజ్. నెక్స్ట్ వన్ వచ్చేసి ఆ టైప్ ఆఫ్ డేటా మొత్తాన్ని, అంటే ప్రాజెక్ట్ రిలేటెడ్ ఉన్న డేటా మొత్తాన్ని కూడా మనం స్టోర్ చేసుకోవడానికి డేటాబేస్ అనేటువంటిది రెడీగా ఉందనుకోండి అమ్మా, అప్పుడు మనం దాన్ని ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ చేయడానికి ఛాన్స్ ఉంటుందా ఉండదా? హలో
సార్.
ఏమో ఏంటి మాధవ్, నువ్వు ఒక్కడవే రియాక్ట్ అవుతావా? క్లాస్ చెప్పేటప్పుడు కూడా వాళ్ళు ఎవరు రియాక్ట్ అవరా? పాప ఎప్పుడు నువ్వే రియాక్ట్ అవుతావా అటెండెన్స్ కి అన్నిటికీ? వాళ్ళు ఎవరు రియాక్ట్ అవ గర్ల్స్ లో ఎవరు రియాక్ట్ అవరా?
సార్ చెప్పండి సార్.
ఎవరు మాట్లాడేది?
జయంత్ సార్.
జయంత్. నానా, వాట్ టైప్ ఆఫ్ ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్ we have in development phase. ఇప్పుడు వరకు నేను చెప్పాను కదా, ఆ డెవలప్మెంట్ ఫేజ్ లో మనకి ఏం అర్థమైంది నీకు? మా ఆడియో డిస్టర్బెన్స్ ఉంది. ఆడియో డిస్టర్బెన్స్ ఉన్న వాళ్ళు ఆపేయండి, పర్వాలేదు. జయంత్ ఆడియో ఆపే. గర్ల్స్ అమ్మ, చెప్పేది అర్థమవుతుందా పోనీ? హలో హలో
సార్ అర్థమవుతుంది సార్, అర్థమవుతుంది సార్.
సార్ అర్థమవుతుంది సార్.
ఎవరు మరి గర్ల్స్ ఎవరు రియాక్ట్
అవ్వలేదు సార్.
ఓకే ఓకే సరే నాన్న, ఒకసారి చూడండి. డెవలప్మెంట్ ఫేజ్ లో ఏంటి అంటే, సో ఈ డెవలప్మెంట్ ఫేజ్ లో ఓకేనా, సో వాట్ టైప్ ఆఫ్ ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్ వి అబ్జర్వ్ ఇన్ ద డెవలప్మెంట్ ఫేజ్. డెవలప్మెంట్ ఫేజ్ అంటే ఏంటంటే, యువర్ ప్రాజెక్ట్ ఈజ్ రెడీ టు స్టార్ట్. ద మీనింగ్ ఆఫ్ project is ready to start in the sense your project is ready to execute. How can we say your project is ready to execute? That's what I'm asking. How can we say your project is ready to execute? Anyone? How can we say your project is ready to execute? So depends on this diagram. Sir, we can say yes.
సార్ ప్రాజెక్ట్ ఫ్రంట్ ఎండ్ బ్యాక్ ఎండ్ రెడీ అయితే
ఓకే సందీప్ చెప్పు.
అలాగే టెస్టింగ్ కూడా కంప్లీట్ అయితే అప్పుడు ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ చేయడానికి రెడీగా ఉన్నది సార్.
ఓకే వెరీ గుడ్. సో already in the diagram we can able to find out the overall outlines or overall boundaries of your project. So whatever the project we are going to develop, or here we have all the requirements we ready to execute that project. Okay na, to execute any project, first of all we require some information and what type of information we are going to execute. Next, to execute that information depends on which platform or by using which domain we are going to develop. So when we select that domain, okay na, to store that information, what type of database we are going to use. So when we have all this information, then we can say, so phase number 3 lo na avanni chesam kada. So in phase number 4, then we say our project is ready to start. The meaning of start in the sense we can able to execute that one. Okay, after execution, okay na, there we test the results. That is what are the different types of results required by the end user, or what are the results consisted by a particular client, and what type of information required by the client. Okay na, there we trial that type of information. After multiple number of test cases, okay na, then we successfully said our project is successfully provide the executable result, whatever it is. So that kind of information we find out in the development phase. Okay na, so that is the information regarding development phase. So that is the phase number 4, and comes to phase number 5. So in phase number 5 is implementation phase. Okay na, so the meaning of implementation phase in the sense, so here we can able to find out the different types of points, and comes to first one is this phase involves the construct of the actual project result. So I already told you that whenever in development phase, whenever our project is ready to start in the sense, okay na, that is ready to implement. The meaning of that one is that project is ready to implement. So here the meaning of implementation in the sense it will involves the construction of the actual project result. Construction of the actual project result in the sense, I already told you that many times. మనం ఏం చేస్తా ఉంటే ప్రాజెక్ట్ ఇంటర్నల్ లో మనం ఏం చేస్తా ఉంటే, ఆఫ్టర్ రైటింగ్ ది ప్రోగ్రామ్, ఓకేనా, immediately there we mention one information, that is expected output information. Am I correct or not? So in development phase, okay na, there we find out the information that is expected output. Okay na, in implementation phase we verify that information. And implementation phase ఏంటంటే there we test that information. Okay na, so that involves the construction of the actual project result, and whether it will meet the user requirements or not. Okay, na? So that kind of information we will verify in implementation phase. So that is the point number 1 in implementation phase. And comes to point number 2. Okay, na? So point number 2, programmers are occupied with encoding, designers are involved in developing graphic material, and contractors అంటే so that is regarding some business. సో మనకి ఏంటంటే మనకి రిలేటెడ్గా ఉన్నది ఏంటంటే ప్రోగ్రామర్స్ ఆర్ ఆక్యుపైడ్ విత్ ఎన్కోడింగ్, designers and other graphical things regarding your project. So here this implementation phase will also includes the, I already told you that whenever if you want develop or if you want send any type of information, okay na, we need to convert that information into some confidential information. So ఆ ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్ ఎందుకు మనం ఇక్కడ ఎన్కోడింగ్ అనేటువంటి వర్డ్ ఎందుకు యూజ్ చేశారంటే వాట్ ఎవర్ ది వాట్ వి కాల్ కోడింగ్ వీ హ్యావ్, ఓకేనా, that code may not be what we call copied by the other persons or other companies, whatever it is, okay na, there we maintain confidential to that particular source code. So whatever the source code developed by the a particular person, that code may not be revealed, okay na, until, okay na, it will be provide some executable result by the user, whatever it is. So ఏదైతే మనకి ఎగ్జిక్యూటబుల్ రిజల్ట్స్ మనకి యూజర్ ఏదైతే మనకి ప్రొడ్యూస్ చేయాలనుకుంటున్నాడో ఆ రిజల్ట్ వచ్చేంత వరకు ఏంటంటే ఆ టైప్ ఆఫ్ ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్ ఏంటంటే మనం రివీల్ చేయం. సో దట్ ఈస్ ది మీనింగ్ ఆఫ్ ఎన్కోడింగ్. అంతేగాని మనం ఏంటంటే ఉన్న డేటాను తీసుకెళ్లి సిఎన్ఎస్ లో లాగా వేరొక డేటాలో కన్వర్ట్ చేయడం అని కాదు. ద మీనింగ్ ఆఫ్ ఎన్కోడింగ్ ఇన్ ద సెన్స్ కాన్ఫిడెన్షియల్ ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్, ఓకేనా. సో అదనమాట. సో దట్ ఈస్ ది సెకండ్ వన్. And the third one is, it is during this phase that the project becomes visible to outsiders. I already told, already మనం ఏం చేసాం ఇప్పుడు, ఆల్రెడీ వి డెవలప్డ్ దట్ ప్రాజెక్ట్. సో దాన్ని డెవలప్ చేసిన తర్వాత దాని యొక్క అవుట్పుట్ అనేటువంటి చూపిస్తామా లేదా? సో డెఫినెట్ గా మనం ఏం చేస్తామంటే దట్ ప్రాజెక్ట్ రిజల్ట్ విల్ బి షోన్ టు ఆల్ అదర్ పర్సన్స్. అంటే ఆల్ అదర్ పర్సన్స్ అంటే ఎవరైతే మనకి వాళ్ళు ఉంటారో, మనకి ఎండ్ యూజర్స్ ఉంటారో, నెక్స్ట్ దోస్ హు ఆర్ ది క్లయింట్స్. సో వాళ్ళందరికీ మనం ఏం చేస్తాం అంటే ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ చేసి చూపిస్తాం. బట్ ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ చేసి చూపిస్తేనే కదా మనకి అమౌంట్ ఇచ్చేది. సో ఆ టైప్ ఆఫ్ ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్ ఏంటంటే మనం ఇంప్లిమెంటేషన్ ఫేజ్ లో ఫైండ్ అవుట్ చేయొచ్చు. అంటే ఇన్ ఇంప్లిమెంటేషన్ ఫేజ్ వీ హ్యావ్ మెయిన్లీ 3 things are observed. The first thing is we test that information. Okay, so that is what we call construction of the actual project result. And we are testing that information. And second one is, there we find out the information regarding encoding. So encoding information and design information and other graphical related information. And graphical related info, if it is require any graphical related information in your project, so that information will also verified in your project. Okay, so that is the point number 2. And in point number 3, whatever the project developed by you, so that project is visible to all. అంటే ఎవరైతే మనకు అదర్ పర్సన్స్ ఉంటారో, అవుట్ సైడర్స్, సో వాళ్ళందరికీ ఏంటంటే ఆ ప్రాజెక్ట్ రిజల్ట్ అనేటువంటిది మనకి విజిబుల్ అవుతుంది. ఎందుకు? ఇట్ ఈస్ ఆల్రెడీ ఇంప్లిమెంటెడ్ ప్రాజెక్ట్. ఓకేనా. సో అది ఆల్రెడీ మనం ఇంప్లిమెంట్ చేసాం కాబట్టి అదేంటి అని మనకు విజిబుల్ అవుతుంది. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్, ఇప్పుడు మీకు ఒక చిన్న ఎగ్జాంపుల్ చెప్తాను నేను. వెన్ ఎవర్ ఎనీ పర్సన్ వాంట్స్ టు what we call what it is to develop a research project, to develop a research paper. So ఒక రీసెర్చ్ పేపర్ ని పబ్లిష్ చేయాలనుకోండి, whenever any person wants to publish.
బాబాయ్ చెప్పి ఒకసారి చూసుకొని మాట్లాడుకొని ఏదైతే చేయండి.
నాన్న ఎవరు ఆడియో ఆపేయమను. హలో
శరత్ ఒకసారి ఆపరా మైక్.
చెప్తున్నాను ఇప్పుడనే కాదు.
హలో శరత్, శరత్ మైక్ చూడు, మైక్ ఆఫ్ చేయి.
వేసుకునే వాళ్ళు ఉన్నారు.
శరత్ మైక్ ఆఫ్ చేయి ఫాస్ట్ గా. హలో శరత్,
మొబైల్ పక్కన పెట్టి వింటున్నాడు.
హలో హలో
మైక్ ఆఫ్ చేయరా
నానా.
సార్? ఆఫ్ చేశారు
శరత్,
సార్.
వాడిని ఒకసారి క్లాస్ అయిపోయిన తర్వాత నాకు ఒకసారి కాల్ చేయమన్నాను. నెక్స్ట్ వీక్ నుంచి నేను నేమ్స్ ర్యాండమ్ గా పిలుస్తా. వాళ్ళ లైన్ లో ఉన్నారు లేదో వాళ్ళ క్వశ్చన్స్ అడుగుతా. ఒళ్ళు దగ్గర పెట్టుకొని వినాలి క్లాసెస్. ఫూలిష్ గా బిహేవ్ చేస్తే ఎలా? వాడిని ఒకసారి నాకు అయిన తర్వాత క్లాస్ ఒకసారి అని కాల్ చేయమని చెప్పి. సో దట్ కైండ్ ఆఫ్ ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్ వీ ఫైండ్ అవుట్ ఇన్ ద ఇంప్లిమెంటేషన్ ఫేజ్. ఓకేనా. సో దీస్ ఆర్ ది 3 different types of points we observed in the implementation phase. and comes to last one. Okay na. So last one is follow up phase. So in this phase, so ikkada chudandi మీరు in point number 2, during this phase everything is arranged that is necessary to bring the project to successful completion. Ante the meaning of follow up phase in the sense, whatever the project we develop, that project is successfully executed and successfully completed. ఓకేనా. సో మనం ఏదైతే తీసుకున్నామో అవన్నీ కూడా ఏంటంటే మనకి ఆ ప్రాజెక్ట్ అంతా కూడా ఏంటంటే సక్సెస్ఫుల్ గా ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ అయినట్టే. సక్సెస్ఫుల్ ఎగ్జిక్యూషన్ అంటే ఏంటంటే దానికి రిలేటెడ్ గా ఉన్న మెటీరియల్ ని మనం ప్రిపేర్ చేసుకొని, ఓకేనా, నెక్స్ట్ దానికి రిలేటెడ్ గా ఉన్న రిజల్ట్స్ ని ఏవైతే అంటే లైక్ మనకి స్క్రీన్ షాట్స్ లాగా అనుకోండి, ఆ ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్స్ ఏవైతే ఉంటాయో అన్ని ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్స్ కూడా మనం ఏం చేస్తాం అంటే రెడీగా పెట్టుకుంటాం అన్నమాట. అంటే ఫాలో అప్ ఫేజ్ ఇస్ నథింగ్ బట్ కంప్లీషన్ ఆఫ్ యువర్ ప్రాజెక్ట్ అమ్మా. Follow-up phase will include completion of your project. Okay, so these are the 6 different types of phases we observed to develop any type of project. Okay, that is from initial phase to follow-up phase. Okay, I repeat once again fastly. So here, whenever if you want to develop any type of project, so there we have mainly 6 different types of phases are there. First one is initiation phase, and second one is definition phase, third one is design phase, next one is development phase, next one is implementation phase, and next one is follow up phase. Whereas comes to initiation phase is nothing but idea regarding your project. And in definition phase we observed that what type of information we have in our project. And whenever if you want to develop any type of project, we need to question ourselves. Ikkada 6 questions ఉన్నాయి. We need to question ourselves before developing that project. When we have answer for every question, yes, we are eligible to develop that project. Okay na. What answer ledu anukondi, we are not eligible to develop that project. Before developing any project, we need to question ourselves, and we need to remember these 6 questions. Ante do we have idea regarding that project? Second one is what type of information required in your project, and third one is how it is, and how it is possible ante by using which pictorial representations, or by using which diagrams, or by using which designs, or what are the different types of design to develop that particular project. Okay, next to how it is implement. So implement in the sense there we select some what we call front end and the back end and the source code information. Next one is implementation phase. So that is test cases, whether it is executing properly or not. And last one is maintenance. So maintenance in the sense completion of complete report regarding your project. That is completion report of your project. Okay na. So in initiation phase already I told you that different types of questions we need to prepare. That is why this project, is it feasible, who are possible users, and what should be the result. Okay na. Next, what is the scope of your project? Okay na. So that is the first one. And the second one is definition phase. In definition phase there we need to remember 4 different types of things like preconditions, functional requirements, operational requirements, design limitations, whatever it is. So that is the second one. And it comes to third one in design phase. Okay na. So design phase will include different types of diagrams, and different types of sketches, and different types of flowcharts, and different types of HTML screen designs and UML diagrams. That is design phase completely depends on the what we call implementation of a project in the form of diagrams. So diagrams form lo మనం ఏంటి అంటే దాన్ని మనం రెడీగా డెవలప్ చేసుకోవడానికి రెడీగా పెట్టుకుంటాం. So that is the third one. Yes, we can able to find out that kind of information in single picture. Okay na. So in the first phase we have collected information. Okay na. So depends on the collected information, there we select the front end data, and depends on the front end data there we select the suitable database from the multiple number of database. Akkada multiple number of backends unnai. Among the multiple number of backends we can select the single backend, or sometimes we can select more than one, whatever it is. Okay na. So that kind of information we find out in the design phase. And next one is development phase. So in development phase there we have different types of steps are there. Already we discussed about that steps. And comes to fifth one is implementation phase. So in implementation phase, there we have mainly three things are available, that whether it is executing or not. And second one is the what are the different types of things like encoding mechanism. Next one is designing, and next one is graphical information regarding your project. We find out in the implementation phase. And last one is that kind of project is visible to outsiders also. That is, after completion of your project, we can show that project information, or we can share that project experiences with the outsiders also. Okay na? Until we may not got the successful result, we may not what we call reveal that information with the others. Okay na? So that's why there we mention one point, encoding. Okay na? The meaning of encoding in the sense, after the successful information, after the successful completion of your project only, we can eligible to share that information or experiences with the other persons. Okay na? So that kind of information we find out in the implementation phase. So that is what we call testing. And last one is follow-up phase. So that is successful completion of your project. Okay na? So this is the information regarding how to develop a project, or what are the six different types of phases we have to develop any type of project. Okay na? So that kind of information